Hi. It starts with a mistake. Not hers. Mine. The client dinner had been cancelled last minute. Some out-of-town executive missed a flight. I could have stayed out, grabbed a drink, caught up with an old friend. But after a long week, the thought of my own bed was too tempting. I came in through the back door. The house was warm, lights low. Her new personal empowerment circle was in full swing, their monthly gathering of wine and curated wisdom. I remember thinking how good it felt to be home early. I didn't want to interrupt, so I kept quiet, slipped my shoes off, coat folded over my arm. I was halfway to the stairs when I heard her voice, bright, laughing, loose from the wine. He's just a paycheck, that's all. Glasses clinked. A round of laughter followed. I froze behind the wall, breath caught mid-inhale. I waited for the punchline, some kind of joke, a laugh that would soften it. None came. Just the scrape of a chair, the low hum of agreement from another woman. My pulse thudded in my ears. For a moment I convinced myself I'd misheard, some stray fragment from another conversation. I stayed frozen, listening, the wall between us suddenly too thin. Another voice, her friend Susan maybe, chimed in. Well, if it works, why not? More laughter. I didn't move. Not for a long while. When I finally made it upstairs, my legs felt detached from me. I changed into pajamas on autopilot, brushed my teeth. When she came up later, smiling, tipsy, planting a kiss on my cheek, I kissed her back like always. In the dark, lying next to her warm body, I stared at the ceiling. Maybe I had misheard. Maybe it had been a joke. But then, I thought about the spa bills, the designer bags, the missing thousands from our joint accounts. There'd been a time when she asked about every purchase. Lately, no more. My eyes burned. I blinked. No confrontation tonight. No wild accusations. Instead, I shifted slightly and whispered, "Good night." She murmured it back, already half asleep. I lay awake for hours, and for the first time in our marriage, I wondered if the woman beside me wasn't my partner anymore, but a strategist playing a longer game. That morning, I kept the mask on. She greeted me in the kitchen like it was any other Saturday, hair pulled back in a loose braid, wearing the soft gray robe I'd bought her last Christmas. Her bare feet patted across the tile as she poured coffee. "You're up early," she said, smiling. "Yeah. Restless night." Also true. She didn't ask why. Just slid a mug across to me and started scrolling her phone. I sat there watching her. Part of me wanted her to give me a sign, some small gesture, some spontaneous affection that would make me question what I'd heard. I wanted her to lean over and kiss me, tell me something sincere, remind me why I had trusted her with my life. Instead, she kept talking about her circle, about a guest speaker they might bring in. "He's this incredible mindset coach," she said. "Marcus something. Total game changer." The name landed like a stone in my stomach. I said nothing. Then she glanced up, bright-eyed. "Oh, I was thinking we should plan a trip. Europe maybe in the fall? You've been working so hard, you deserve it." I held her gaze a moment. There was an odd undertone to it. Too rehearsed, too perfect. I forced a smile. "Sure. Let's look at that." Her smile widened. She leaned across the table and squeezed my hand. For anyone watching, we would have looked like the perfect couple planning their next adventure. But behind my smile, my mind was already moving fast. After she left for her late morning yoga class, I walked straight to my home office. The doubt gnawed at me. Was I about to tear apart my life over a fragment of overheard conversation? Could I even trust my own instincts anymore? But the harder question was this: if I ignored it, and it was real, how far would it go before I saw the full damage? That decided it. I logged into our bank accounts. I had access to everything, had always managed the finances. In the past 6 months, the patterns were clear. Unusual ATM withdrawals, large ones, often on Fridays right before her, circles, or retreats, storage rental fees, a small commercial unit leased 2 towns over, charges to boutique wellness brands and unfamiliar coaching services. A different shape of spending than before. Less household, more personal, and larger. I opened our joint credit card statements. Same pattern. Thousands each month, labeled as consulting, development, retreat deposits. Not a single one had been discussed with me. No panic. No impulse moves. I kept my breathing steady, taking notes, copying statements. This wasn't enough to confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand how deep this ran and who else was involved. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in over a year. "Paul Kingston," came the voice. "Paul, it's me. I need a discreet business audit." There was a pause. "Corporate? Personal?" Another pause. He was smart enough not to ask details. "Understood. How fast do you want me to start?" "Immediately. I'll send you the accounts to monitor." Paul was one of the best forensic accountants I'd worked with. Trusted, discreet, ruthless when needed. I told him what to look for: hidden transfers, off-record accounts, asset shifts. And storage rentals? Yes. Track those too. By the time I hung up, I'd already felt a thin line of steel hardening inside me. The fear was still there, but now there was a plan. Later that week, another break came by sheer luck. I was cleaning out the guest room. We had family scheduled to visit next month. In the nightstand drawer, under an old stack of magazines, I found it, her old iPad. The one I'd given her 3 years ago. Forgotten, dusty, but still linked to her cloud account. I powered it on. No passcode. I don't know if my hands were shaking from adrenaline or anger. It synced instantly. Email. Calendar. Messages. I told myself to stop, to think, but it was already too late. The first thread I opened told me everything I needed to know. Flirtatious emails with J. Marcus, corporate wellness. References to our project. Mentions of upcoming private events and deep strategy sessions. Several RSVP confirmations to exclusive retreats I'd never heard about. Out-of-town weekends. One was last month, when she told me she was visiting her sister. I scrolled further. A photo of her and Marcus, casual, arms touching, at some sleek modern cafe. Another thread revealed an event itinerary sent to a private group. My heart was pounding, but my mind stayed clear. Document. Save. Don't confront. That night, lying beside her again, I watched her sleep. I remembered when I used to feel nothing but pride looking at her. When I would have defended her against any accusation, any suspicion. I thought of the anniversary cruise 2 years ago. How she'd cried as we stood on the deck, whispering that this life we'd built was everything she'd ever wanted. Now, that same woman lay inches away from me, wrapped in a secret life I was only starting to uncover. She murmured something soft in her sleep and shifted closer. Her hand found mine under the covers. I didn't pull away, but I stared at the ceiling until dawn. I woke with a headache the next morning, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of what I now knew. She moved easily through the house, humming as she folded laundry. Normal, light. I could almost pretend nothing had changed. Almost. But every look, every gesture now felt tinged with something else. False normalcy. "Want to do dinner tonight?" she asked cheerfully. "Just us?" "Sure," I replied. My voice came out calm. Too calm, maybe. But she didn't seem to notice. While she was out shopping, I sent Paul the newest material, screenshots from the iPad, email headers, calendar invites. A few hours later he called. "You were right to dig," he said flatly. "I've found consistent payments to a storage facility in Westfield. Monthly auto draft. Opened 6 months ago." "What address?" I asked. He gave it to me. 2 towns over, tucked in an industrial strip. "There's more," he added. "Frequent ATM cash withdrawals that match deposit patterns into a secondary PayPal account registered under her maiden name. Some of those funds are moving into prepaid business accounts tied to a consulting LLC." "An LLC?" "Looks like she's setting something up. Name isn't clear yet. Looks like drafts only, not fully registered." It was more than I'd feared. This wasn't impulsive. It was structured. "Keep digging," I told him. "Already on it," he said. I couldn't shake the memories that followed me through the day. Our last vacation, how she leaned her head on my shoulder as the plane lifted off, telling me I was a rock, that no matter how stressful life got, we were in it together. I had believed every word, had built my entire life around that belief. Now, sitting at my desk, looking at evidence of hidden LLCs and private retreats, I wondered how long ago those words had started to rot from the inside. By Saturday, I'd made a decision. I needed to see the storage unit myself. She had yoga scheduled mid-morning, followed by a wellness brunch. I watched her get ready, her voice light, her eyes bright. "You're sure you don't mind if I'm out most of the day?" she asked. "Of course not," I said. I even smiled. "You deserve it." She kissed my cheek on her way out. I watched her drive away, waited 5 minutes, then left through the back. The storage facility was unassuming, nestled between a discount furniture store and a shuttered auto shop. I parked across the street and waited. An hour passed. Then, just as Paul's tracking reports had suggested, her car pulled in. She was alone. I watched through binoculars, stomach tight. She keyed in her code and entered the building, carrying a large tote bag. Inside for about 20 minutes. When she exited, the bag looked lighter. No one would have thought much of it. Just a well-dressed woman managing her personal storage. Normal. I stayed another half hour, then drove home. That night, she curled against me on the couch, head on my shoulder as we watched a movie. Her warmth felt strange now, as if I were sitting next to someone wearing her skin but no longer fully her. "You've seemed distracted lately," she murmured. "Work stress," I replied smoothly. She sighed and pressed closer. "We really should take that trip. You need a break." I wrapped an arm around her, the gesture automatic. Inside, a single thought was burning. How long had she been building her escape while using my name, my resources? Paul called late that night. "I think you're going to want to see what's inside that unit," he said. "Based on her paper trails, she's moving assets, maybe prepping for a financial split." I stared out the window, watching her silhouette through the doorway as she got ready for bed. She smiled as she passed me. "Coming to bed soon?" "In a bit," I said. And when she was asleep, I sat alone in the dark, planning the next move. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. It was time to get inside that storage unit. I wasn't going to wait for the inevitable moment when she'd suddenly need space, or start moving money faster. If she was preparing for war, I needed to know exactly what battlefield I was standing on. I called in a quiet favor through a trusted security contact, someone who'd done corporate site work for us in the past. "Need a professional entry," I told him over the phone, my tone flat. "No trace. Just observation." There was a brief pause on the line before he spoke. "Discreet?" "Extremely," I replied without hesitation. That night, while she hosted another online circle, I slipped away. The sky was low and gray. The air cold. The lock came off faster than I'd expected. 30 seconds of practiced work. Then I was inside. What I saw wasn't chaos. It was disturbingly organized. On one side, several stacked bankers' boxes, all meticulously labeled. Receipts, transfers, consulting contracts, retreat funds. I opened the top box. Cash transfer receipts. Dozens. Wire confirmations, large amounts being shifted from personal accounts to prepaid business ones. Several under her maiden name. Several to a new PayPal business account. Beneath that, drafts of a new LLC operating agreement. Clean, crisp, unsigned but ready. The partner listed. J. Marcus. I sat back on my heels, breathing slowly. This wasn't an affair of impulse. It was a structured extraction. A coordinated plan to move financial assets out of our marriage into a private entity I had no legal control over. But then I saw something that made my chest tighten even further. Another box. Legal folders. At first glance, nothing unusual, until I saw the letterhead on several of the documents. The office of our family attorney. The very man who drafted our estate plans, our trusts. A man I had trusted like a brother. Inside were marked up copies of trust amendments. Drafts of property division proposals. But here's what stopped me cold. Internal notes mentioning strategic timing and pre-event asset protection. In one margin, a handwritten note. LLC structure coordinated with JM. Must finalize after separation discussions initiated. JM. J. Marcus. The same man now showing up across every thread of her secret planning. The implications were immediate and devastating. This wasn't just an affair. It was a premeditated financial attack, engineered with help from the very legal advisor I had trusted to protect both of us. I spent another hour in the unit, photographing every document. By the time I relocked the door and drove home, the false normalcy of our house felt like a cruel joke. That night, she slipped into bed beside me, skin warm, breath slow. "You seemed distracted at dinner," she murmured against my shoulder. "Work's heating up," I said softly. Her fingers traced my arm. "I'm so proud of you. All that you do for us." I lay there, perfectly still. Hearing those words now, knowing what I knew, was like listening to a stranger speak through her mouth. In the dark, staring at the ceiling, one thought became clear. She wasn't just drifting away. She was positioning for battle. And she thought I was still asleep to it. She was wrong. By dawn, I had crossed a point of no return. The evidence wasn't theoretical anymore. The storage unit had made that clear. This was an organized extraction. An exit plan built right under my nose, using my resources, my name, my trust. For a moment that morning, I stared at her sleeping beside me and felt a fierce pull. Part of me still wanted to believe it was all a mistake. That somehow this had spiraled beyond what she intended. That maybe I could stop it. But that thought passed quickly. The papers didn't lie. The signatures didn't lie. The face of J. Marcus across her emails didn't lie. I got out of bed and walked quietly to my office. It was time to move. First step, replace the lawyer. I contacted a high-profile divorce attorney known for handling financial fraud cases. A woman named Catherine Rhodes. Ruthless, precise, discreet. We met once through mutual business contacts. I scheduled an off-the-record consultation for that afternoon. When we met in her glass-walled conference room, I laid out the basics. No anger. No drama. Just facts. Catherine listened carefully, her fingers steepled, gaze sharp and unwavering. After a moment, she spoke. You understand that your family attorney is now compromised. Fully, I said, my voice steady. She gave a slight nod. And that your wife is actively creating structures to hide assets in advance of divorce. Yes. No hesitation. Catherine's mouth curved into a cool, professional smile. Good, she said crisply, reaching for her legal pad. Then here's what we do. The next several hours were a master class in strategic protection. We began documenting everything. Full forensic backup of financial irregularities, every flagged transaction, every storage rental payment, every cash withdrawal. Copies of the LLC drafts, with clear timestamp proof that they were developed before any formal separation conversation. Emails with Marcus, including references to shifting financial leverage. The ethics breached by our family attorney, clear conflict of interest documented. Catherine moved fast, had her team draft NDAs for everyone involved on my side. I signed. So did Paul. You'll need to maintain absolute composure at home, Catherine advised. Any premature confrontation could tip her off and accelerate asset movement. Understood, I said. But maintaining that composure would be the hardest part. At home that evening, the stage was set for false normalcy again. She greeted me with a kiss when I came through the door. How was your day? Busy, I replied. Productive. Over dinner, she chatted brightly about an upcoming solo healing retreat, 2 weeks away, out of state. Sounded like the perfect opportunity for her to escalate her next moves. I think I really need this one, she said, eyes glowing. It'll be so good to clear my head and focus on me for a while. I smiled gently. You deserve it, I said, and in that moment I realized she thought she was winning, that I was still playing the role of the distracted husband, too focused on work to notice what was slipping away. She didn't know that every piece of her plan was now mapped in my files, that her retreat would be her final mistake. That night, while she packed her bags upstairs, I sent Catherine the latest update. She's leaving Friday. Solo retreat 3 nights. Catherine's reply came instantly. Perfect. That's when we move to lock financial structures and file preliminary protective orders. I watched her move through the house that week, smiling, humming, texting late at night. The charade would have been almost laughable if it hadn't been so gutting. But beneath the surface, I felt stronger now than I had in weeks. No more hoping. No more questioning. Now it was about control, and the right moment to strike. She returned from the retreat glowing, tanned, smiling, energized, practically floating through the front door. It was exactly what I needed, she said, pulling me into a hug from behind in the kitchen. I feel so clear now. Everything's going to be better. Her hands rested lightly on my chest. I could feel her pulse. Steady. Calm. She had no idea. Glad you had a good time, I said, turning to face her with a smile that probably looked more natural than it felt. Over the next 2 days, I let her settle back in. False normalcy resumed at full volume. She gushed about ideas for new workshops, hinted at possible business partnerships. She was exploring. Marcus's name didn't cross her lips. Not once. That was telling in itself. She seemed lighter now, like someone who'd just passed a major milestone in a plan they believed was working. She was already mentally living on the other side of our marriage. And that's why I picked that week to set the trap. How about a proper dinner out? I suggested casually one morning. You've been working so hard lately. Let's celebrate a little. Her eyes lit up. "I love that." She leaned in. "Just us, perfect timing." Reservations made. Private table at a fine restaurant we both loved, one we used to go to often, before things had started unraveling beneath the surface. That night, I watched her dress carefully in the mirror. The same perfume she used to wear when we were dating. She glanced back at me and smiled. "You look beautiful," I said softly. She laughed, eyes shining. "You clean up pretty well yourself." "Perfect." She was confident. Relaxed. The dinner unfolded with practiced ease. She laughed, flirted, toasted me with her glass of wine. On the surface, we looked like any successful couple enjoying a night out. But beneath my calm exterior, my mind stayed locked on the folder waiting in my briefcase under the table. We made it through appetizers, through wine, through her cheerful updates about her circle's next event. Then dessert arrived. I set my fork down. "There's something I'd like to show you," I said, reaching down and placing the folder between us. Her smile flickered, just for a second. "What's this?" she asked, still trying to sound light. I opened the folder and turned it toward her. On top, photos of her entering the storage unit, copies of the LLC draft, printouts of emails with Marcus, including the retreat plans she'd lied about, a draft ethics complaint prepared for the state legal board, naming our former family lawyer for conflict of interest. Her face went pale. The smile cracked. She reached for the pages, flipping them with shaking fingers. I was going to tell you," she stammered, voice thin. "I just needed time to figure it all out." I met her eyes, steady, unblinking. "You called me a paycheck," I said quietly. "Now watch how fast this account closes." She opened her mouth, closed it again. Hands trembling slightly, she started to speak, but no words came out. I stood calmly. "Enjoy the rest of your dessert," I said. "You'll be hearing from my attorney in the morning." And I walked out, leaving her sitting alone at the table, the false world she'd built starting to collapse around her. The filing hit her desk the next morning. Full divorce petition. Asset protection orders. Formal ethics complaint filed against our former family lawyer. Her first attempt was predictable. A flurry of texts. "Please, can we talk? It wasn't what you think. You don't have to do this." I didn't reply. My attorney's office followed with immediate injunctions to freeze key joint accounts. Catherine's team executed flawlessly. The prepaid business accounts linked to her maiden name were flagged. Her financial backdoor was already sealed. Then came the real twist, the circle itself turning on her. Word traveled fast in their small ecosystem. One of her own friends, the same one who'd hosted the night I'd overheard those words, quietly reached out through my attorney. Apparently, once the filings hit, the friend had realized how far things had gone, and how much legal risk they themselves could face by staying silent. Through counsel, she provided voluntary deposition testimony, confirming my wife's statements about me being just a paycheck, confirming that Marcus had been openly referenced as a partner for months, confirming that the circle meetings had often included explicit planning about her next chapter, financially and personally. The deposition was gold. Public consequences followed quickly. Marcus's professional license was suspended. The ethics board moved fast after the complaint and supporting evidence. Fraud and ethics violations were clear. Our former family lawyer came under investigation. He lost his largest clients, several key families we both knew socially. His reputation? Finished. Her empowerment circle crumbled. Once the deposition leaked to other members, several distanced themselves fast. 2 keynote speaking gigs she had lined up were cancelled within a week. The same circle that had once toasted her now moved to protect themselves. In court, she fought, but the evidence was overwhelming. Final outcomes: she lost half of the remaining marital assets. The asset protection orders had stopped her from siphoning more. What she'd already moved, court clawed much of it back. She lost control of her new LLC. The court ruled it had been created with marital funds under fraudulent pretenses. The entity was dissolved. Her reputation? Shredded. Once admired in her social circles, now whispered about, a cautionary tale. As for me, I moved forward. Not instantly, not cleanly. The aftermath lingered longer than I expected. There were days when I woke hearing that voice again. "He's just a paycheck," but I refused to let the betrayal define me. Thank you for watching. Bye.